Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host of my podcast, Pause and Rewind. I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now. But how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes, and what makes our guests tick. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Pause and Rewind. I hope you're keeping well. I hope you have some nice Easter plans coming up. Whatever you're doing, enjoy. Today on this episode, I am talking to Roxy Bourdillon. Roxy is the editor-in-chief of DIVA magazine, the world's leading magazine for queer women and non-binary folk. Roxy is on the verge of something super exciting because tomorrow, the 17th of April, her new book, her debut book, What a Girl Wants, a true story of sexuality and self-discovery, is out to buy. I had the absolute pleasure of reading this book in the lead up to this podcast. And I have to say to you, it is absolutely wonderful. And you'll hear my thoughts on it during this episode. I give Roxy a little review and yeah, with absolute pleasure. It is honestly, it's a great book. Do yourself a favor, set an alarm to order it tomorrow when it is officially on sale, or go online and pre-order it now. But yeah, do it. You won't regret it. I was super excited to chat to Roxy in this conversation about the excitement of the book, the creative process, and everything that she poured into it. And so I'm really, really excited for you to listen to this conversation, find out more about Roxy and the book. But yeah, this really was a gorgeous conversation. So here it is. Enjoy. Cheers. Hey there, Roxy. Welcome to Pause and Rewind. I am so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm really, really excited for this conversation, Neil. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And I'm going to start with the question that I ask all of my guests is what does the world look like for Roxy Bourdillon right now?
Oh my goodness. So right now, the world looks very busy and very gay, which is how the world has looked for me for the last few years, in my career, especially working at Diva magazine. But right now, it's even more so than usual. So what's going on right now? We've got the latest issue of Diva, which I edit, goes to press next week. We are in the lead up for Lesbian Visibility Week, which is powered by Diva, and it's definitely one of our biggest times of the year. And on top of all of that lovely queer stuff, I am today, it's 5 weeks until my book is published, my debut book.
I
So
love
that's
it.
quite a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, when it comes to Diva, it must always be a lot. There is constantly not just the ongoing side of the publishing, but the different events and the campaigns and initiatives. It must keep you, and Lesbian Visibility Week is such an exciting week. When do you find time to rest during all that?
When do I find time to rest? So that's something I've been asking myself. When am I going to have a little moment of rest? I think that one of the great joys of working at Diva and of the work I do outside of Diva as a freelance writer and as an author and so on is that I'm getting to write about and do work that I really care about,
Yeah.
that really speaks to my own experience as a lesbian, as a queer person, as a woman, and also I hope is in some way helpful or comforting or entertaining for my gorgeous diverse community. So I get so much joy and creative fulfillment and a thrill from the work that I do. But big part of it being so personal, it can be in a way a little bit all consuming. Like there's so much we want to achieve, there's so
Yeah.
many stories we want to tell, there's so many people we want to champion, and that's gorgeous and important. it is also important to try and find, moments of rest and relaxation and recuperation for yourself. For me, what that looks like is probably, in all honesty, it's me and my lovely partner of 10 years, Naomi. It's me and Naomi going down by the sea. We live in Hastings now, near the seaside. So going and having a moment, just looking at big Mother Ocean, looking at the big blue, and just breathing out a sigh of, oh, it's okay, we're okay, and just being together and having a laugh.
That's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I loved reading about Naomi in the book. I've been so privileged to get a peek at the book before it's out. I'm so excited about it. Just to tap into, I mean, your passion for the community and what you do really shines through. And I think when you have that blending of the day job and the gay job and they merge into one, it does make it so much easier. I would say we probably are prone to pushing ourselves a little bit
Mm.
more than we probably should sometimes. It does become really consuming, particularly with anti-LGBTQ rhetoric as well. But it also shows that there's never been a more important time to sometimes push through.
That's really true. It's so true. So, Diva magazine last year, we celebrated our 30th birthday. But it is also true that even though we've been around for over 3 decades now, actually, right now, the moment that we're living in as queer people is frightening.
Yeah.
Particularly for our trans siblings. And so it is so vital that we, use our voices and raise them and keep doing the work we're doing. Absolutely couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And Diva really does show up for the whole community, but particularly the trans community. And we spoke about that a little before we jumped on. And I think Diva does it better than anyone I know when it comes to queer media. Like it really does. And I think that's testament to yourself, the whole team behind it.
Thank you for saying that, Neil. I'm glad that that shines through. And it is the whole team. It's not just me. It's everyone at Diva.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, it feels like diversity and trans inclusion and trans allyship is part of the DNA of what Diva is.
Yeah.
And it's part of the people who write Diva, like some of our, we have trans writers and trans staff. It's part of the readers, it's part of the community. And the thing is that we know as queer people, trans people have always been an integral part of our community.
Yeah.
We have always had that close relationship. So it's so important to keep those bonds and to stand up for each other when it's really, really needed.
Yeah, we need to show up. I'm also so excited that Trans History Week, I'm the events director for Trans History Week. I'm so excited as we gear towards year two, myself as an ally. That's something I do to step up and kind of like support the trans community. I'm so excited that we're nominated for a Diva Award this year.
Oh, congratulations. Very, very well deserved nomination indeed.
Let's talk about the book. How are you feeling about it?
How am I feeling about my book? So, my book, What a Girl Wants, a true story of sexuality and self-discovery, is a funny, feminist, soul-bearing memoir about what it was really like for me growing up and navigating the world as a woman who happens to really, really love women in a world that can sometimes make you feel terrible about both of those things. How am I feeling about it as we approach publication? I'm feeling so many feelings, is the
Yeah,
honest, genuine answer. Like, part of me is really excited, and part of me is still a bit like, oh my God, Rox, we wrote a book. What? People are
yeah,
reading the book we wrote. And there's a lot going on that's really big and exciting. Part of me is frightened because it is a personal book. It's a really, really personal story. And that's something like I worked on it for a couple of years very privately. And it's just like maybe your editor and your agent and Naomi are the only people who'd, read it as I was working through it. And then now it's at the stage where other people are reading it. And, when it is published, even more people will hopefully be reading it. And that's thrilling and daunting and quite a lot to wrap your head around, actually.
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. And you really bear your soul, your identity. It's all in there.
It is. It is indeed. Hopefully with lots of jokes and entertainment as well as the heartache and trauma.
Yes, it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, the reviews are coming in. I've loved seeing the reviews that have popped up online by people that have like me have had the absolute blessing of a sneak peek into it. I've written some notes here, so it is packed with heartwarming, heartbreaking, and hilarious moments. Um, it is a queer time machine ride back to places and moments and nostalgic cultural references. It's a history lesson and a crucial call to action all in one when it comes to allyship and solidarity. Um, and it is a deep, unapologetic display of love and affection for our community. So those were my takeaways from it. It was a roller coaster and I absolutely loved it.
Oh, Neil, that's so lovely to hear. That is honestly what a gorgeous, glowing review. Can I quote you? That's
Absolutely. I'll ping it
amazing.
over afterwards. But it is exciting and I totally understand that when it comes to putting something out there that is so personal, there is like sometimes a fear and trepidation around that.
Yeah, there definitely is. But what I have to remind myself, because I think that's a human instinct, right? To
Mm,
feel a bit nervous of being exposed or on display or open for judgment. What I have to remind myself is, I guess, do you know what? That when I was young, when I was a tortured, deeply closeted teenager, filled with shame and anxiety about my sexuality, but also about being a woman and my body and all sorts of different things. So steeped in shame. The biggest thing I felt was alone,
mm,
and it was a lack of stories that I could relate to, and being at school, literally, they introduced Section 28 the year I started nursery and didn't repeal it until the year after I'd left sixth form. Margaret Thatcher was definitely trolling me. All of that stuff makes you feel so alone and
yeah,
isolated and shame-filled. And it's when I start to think, oh God, people are gonna read my words, that's a bit nerve-wracking. I think, yeah, but hopefully it'll help people of whatever identity, whatever sexuality, whatever gender. Hopefully it'll help them feel comforted, and bring them a moment of laughter or relief
yeah,
or recognition. And it's when you start to hear from people who've read the book and when you can tell that they have felt moved by it or empowered by it or entertained by it, and you can tell in the way that they talk to you about it if it's really chimed with
yeah.
them. That's beautiful. That's really gorgeous. So I'm trying to focus on the good it can do being out there, and hopefully that it will connect with people.
Absolutely. We are similar ages, and not just your references spoke to me about a time of the scene that I absolutely loved, but those feelings, and I don't think you're right. I think that it's a book that is so generously warm and humble and poignant, and it definitely resonated with me. What are your hopes for the book in terms of maybe younger people that are reading it right now?
I hope that people of all ages can enjoy this book. And I've
Yeah,
had early readers who have been 60s and above who have really resonated with the book and found it meaningful and powerful and entertaining for them. And I've had younger readers who've also felt that they enjoyed it and they felt seen by it and comforted by it. And it's honestly my hope that readers of all ages, and I don't,
yeah,
we do a lot of work on ourselves, and we do, particularly Neil, in the spaces we're working in, we're constantly doing work in trying to empower ourselves and other queer people to feel good about who we are, to shed some of that deep-seated shame and to
yeah,
really own and take pleasure in our identity. But I don't think that for me personally, that's a battle that's kind of just, won. It's an ongoing thing.
yeah,
It's an
for sure.
ongoing journey of like feeling, making sure you feel good about yourself. So I hope that people of all ages can enjoy it. But it is also true that there are moments in the book where, in a way, I was thinking, if you're a person who's in the position that I was in at the beginning of the book, of
Yeah.
being closeted or in turmoil about this stuff, if you're a young person, if you're a teenager, then I definitely want them to feel reassured, validated. I want them to know that it's society that's broken, not them. And I want them to feel like, look, it's okay. We can have a laugh about stuff. We can get through. It's going to be all right, love. So I definitely did want a little bit of that energy in there
Yeah.
for anyone, any readers of that at that moment in their life.
Yeah. I felt that energy, and I was thinking about me growing up and being that awkward teen that was a little bit different and felt a little bit out of place, and I definitely felt that. So I have no doubt that that is going to speak to other people as well. Did you enjoy the creative process of writing the book? And also, I love the interludes between chapters, whether it's a cultural reference or an excerpt for a diary. What was that whole creative process like for you?
Oh, this is a great question. So, I loved the creative process of writing a book. I have always been someone who wrote, and I've always been a person who processed big feelings through writing down all of my feelings and then making sense of myself and the world in that way. And as a from being a kid, I was keeping diaries and writing little stories and making little paper magazines and so on. So I've always found joy and self-expression and self-knowledge through writing. And as a journalist, I'm very used to writing to deadline short form content, features and articles and interviews and shorter pieces. So with writing the memoir, it was really an opportunity for me as a writer to put all those creative skills that I've hopefully honed and worked on over a lifetime, really, and then put them to use and stretch my legs for a proper long form piece of content in this new way. And then I think with it being a memoir, creatively it's a really interesting thing, because you might think like memoir, well, it's a bit like therapy, and it isn't really. It is in the sense of I got to know myself perhaps a bit better through writing the book, and I got to revisit my life at different stages and really think really hard about how it was in that moment and how far I've come and the journey I've been on. But it's not really therapy, because you're taking real events from your life, and then there's definitely a technique and a craft of storytelling to
Yeah.
then you want to, with these real things that have happened to you, you want to create a compelling memoir which takes the reader on a journey that is going to be engaging and is going to be emotional and is going to be funny and heartbreaking and powerful and all these different things. So it's not just as simple as here's my life story, take it.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of craft involved. And for me, part of the craft of it was those little interludes. So I'm so glad that you enjoyed these little bite-sized bits between
They're so
chapters.
clever. They're so clever.
Oh, thank you so much. I want part of why I wanted those was because I saw them as opportunities for a few things, really. For comedy, I saw them
Yeah.
as opportunities to give the reader a laugh, but also kind of as opportunities to reflect on cultural touchstones or moments for our community. And a lot of them are funny, some of them are impassioned, some of them are a little bit poignant, but they're kind of markers in between each chapter to to punctuate the story and really take the reader on that journey.
Yeah. They also give you quite a welcome bit of a head shift
Yeah,
actually in between the chronological nature of it. They gave you just a little bit of a welcome relief from some of the more
yeah.
heavier moments as well. So no, they were genius, so good, and you did it so well. I tell you one of the, and I don't want to uh, upset you or anything, but your relationship with your grandma is like my nan meant the world to me, and she was taken way too soon. But that was so touching to me in terms of my own reflecting on my own relationship with my grandma as well and how important she was to me. So that was an absolute standout to me. I felt every bit of the love that you had for her, I still have for her.
Thank you so much for saying that, Neil. That means like that can make me emotional just even
Yeah, can
now after
imagine.
all this
Yeah,
time. Thank you for saying it. And I'm glad to hear that you had a gorgeous grandmother in your life who you
yeah,
could have that special bond with, because it's such a gift. And we might get into things as we're talking about my origin story, but for me, growing up, I it was a very unhappy childhood home. It was a
yeah,
very difficult childhood, which lacked stability and had a lot of pain in it, if I'm brutally honest. But throughout all of that, my shining, guiding joy was my granny. Like,
yeah,
she was just pure joy and love and knowing each other and connecting. And she was just absolutely, she's my heart.
yeah.
So for me, I had to have her in the book if it was going to be a truthful book about who I am and how I've got to where I am.
Yeah, and again, it shines through. She gave main character energy, and absolutely loved reading that. I feel like we could swap granny stories all day. I would love that sometime. But I'm so excited to dive further into your origin story. I feel like I know quite a lot from reading the book. So this episode's a real sneak peek into the book and what people can expect. But for now, Roxy, are you ready to pause and rewind?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Take me back. Tell me all about little Roxy.
Little Roxy. Okay, so I grew up in Leeds in the late 80s and the 90s. I was a bit of an odd bod as a kid. I was chubby, I was ungainly, I had wonky teeth, I had eczema, I was bullied, people taunted me and mocked me. And as I said, it was quite an unhappy childhood in a lot of ways. I always felt like an outsider. I never felt like I fitted in. But the shining things that kind of gave me hope and positivity and liberation amongst all that were my relationship with my granny, for sure. That was gorgeous. Also, women, just just even before I knew that I fancied women, I was enchanted and just a fangirl of a whole gender. Like, I just loved women. I wanted to hear women's stories. I wanted to listen to songs sung by women. I wanted to look at what women were wearing. I wanted to be surrounded by feminine energy. And I just always, always sought that stuff out. And I always wrote. And I think maybe because of things that I struggled with when I was little, perhaps I was looking to writing and reading as a way to escape that painful, difficult stuff,
Mm.
and as a way to find comfort and to invent and discover new worlds and new ways of being. So that was always something that brought me a lot of joy. What was I like as a little girl? I was a conundrum because I was someone who simultaneously deeply feared and deeply craved attention. So I was part shy girl, part show off, and that was that was a heavy cocktail.
How does that show up now? Is it still that kind of yin and yang?
I think it is, I think it is. I think it still shows up to this day. I think it's something core in me, whether it's what I was born with or whether it was what was forged through my childhood experiences and so on. But I think I'm someone who, if I need to turn up and put on a show or tell a story or have a wonderful moment with people, I can do that. I can summon up some creative energy and some razzmatazz, and I can really go for it and really enjoy that moment, and hopefully other people enjoy it too. But then what I find is that takes like a deep personal toll on me, and then I need to sort of, withdraw a little bit and just retreat into my safety of my relationship, my partner and my closest friends, and really then do need to be able to recharge and decompress, because I'm someone who, loves people and loves communication and creativity and glamour and being out there in the world. But I'm also someone who needs a lot of relief from all that stuff as well, I think.
Yeah. Get on stage and entertain, that's totally fine. But I will often run away into a dark room afterwards to kind of take those moments to get back in. Yeah.
100% relate to that. Yeah.
Big hard relate from me. Um, I'd love to know what's your favorite anecdote that you've heard about yourself from when you were little?
So my favorite one is, so me and my granny, we used to have these long heart-to-heart conversations, because we were always very, very close, and we would talk about all sorts because we had so much in common. We both loved fashion, we both loved dancing, we both loved old movies, and all. Well, I mean, possibly I just loved what she loved, I'm not sure, but now those things feel very much a part of me. And we'd have these long heart-to-heart conversations, just the two of us, about the nuances of human nature and different behavior and the way different people move through the world. And she always would tell me this story about me as a little girl that I think illustrates what we've just been talking about, Neil, these two competing forces quite succinctly. So she used to tell me that when I was little, it was some kind of family gathering, and I was asked to recite a poem for everybody. And she said that she watched me take this information in, that I was going to have to perform this poem, and suddenly my tiny little face is just full of anxiety, and I'm really, really stressed about it, and I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself because if I'm going to perform a poem, it's got to be the best poem that these people have ever heard. And then she said she watched me take myself off into a corner and kind of have a word with myself, like, okay, Tiny Rocks, we're going to do this poem for everybody, got to get it together. And then suddenly there was a moment when I went from being extremely visibly anxious to being filled with this sudden pizzazz and razzmatazz. And then I dug deep and then suddenly performed my poem with this gusto and did a lovely job of it. And she said she thought that moment always summed up how I was in this way. And I think she's right. I think she really saw me, because I think that really illustrates kind of what I'm like as a person in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that you've just hit the nail on the head of everything that was going through my mind when you were explaining that. She saw you. Like I just get this really lovely feeling that she really saw you, and how much of her obviously comes into you in terms of the way you communicate, the storytelling, to be able to be told that story. And probably that's something that maybe happened quite, quite a while ago, but to be able to recount that story and all of the feelings that probably come with that, that's a real celebration of your relationship, and someone truly seeing you.
That's such a beautiful thing to say. Thank you, Neil. I feel that she really saw me as well. I feel
Yeah,
that she saw me in a way that I love all of my family deeply, but families are complicated.
they are.
And, those relationships can be, you can love people very much, but they can be tricky.
Yeah.
And I feel that my granny really saw me and really loved all of me and really
Yeah.
understood me in quite a profound way. And I feel that one of the things that I take from that gorgeous relationship with this incredible woman, she was so funny and so fabulous, she was just amazing, is I saw how she was in the world. I saw how she told a story, how she would
Mm,
make people laugh or make people feel good. And I thought, I want to be like Granny. I want to
yeah.
have some of that energy and that, hopefully, that charm. Yeah. So thank you for saying that. That's
No,
beautiful.
it really comes through strong. And so there's the glamour side of thing, there's the storytelling side of thing, but also to be having those in-depth conversations as well about life, about existence and stuff. That's something that not all children, grandchildren actually experience with their families either. Like that must be a beautiful thing to reflect on when you think back around some of those really deep conversations that they came through in the book as well. But it's not something that I experience with my family now, and I certainly didn't then, but my nan probably more so.
Because you had this special relationship
Yeah.
with your nan again, and it is a gorgeous, a joyful thing to have been able to have those. And the biggest thing for me was that when I was in a room with my granny, or when my granny looked at me, it felt the sun was shining on me. She was so radiant, and I felt the love, and it was just bliss. It was just gorgeous. And when it was just the two of us, and we were having these in-depth conversations about human nature and relationships and dynamics and all these different things, how precious, how gorgeous, just me and her and our sunshine love. And it felt really, really special. And it's making me smile now just
Yeah.
talking about it. It was really a
Exactly.
joy.
Yeah, it's just it's so beautiful to hear. I would love to know what you were like at school. Obviously, I've got a feeling from the book again, but what was that experience like for you, and how did that kind of change as you got older?
So at school, academically, I always did very well. I got straight A's in everything except PE, which I was and continue to be appalling at, I'm afraid. But yeah, academically, I did very well. Socially, I continued to feel like I didn't fit in. The biggest thing when I think about my sort of school days, we've talked a little bit about Section 28, and that was very shame inducing, because you're the place where you're going every day to be taught. Your institution of learning is actually instilling homophobia in your bones,
Yeah,
which is really dark, really, really dark stuff. So I think that although I maybe wasn't thinking at the time about politics in that way, I think that stuff all seeped in, and I think it all fueled the shame that I had within me. I think also, like, I think when puberty hit, that took a toll. So suddenly you're going through all sorts of changes. And I sort of, at the age of 13, overnight, my figure changed and I got very curvaceous. And then, like, from that moment on, the way that the outside world and strangers in the street and people I met interacted with me changed dramatically. And it was actually really frightening. Like, I'd always sort of had, I don't know, strangers mocking me or commenting on me in some way, but then suddenly you get these quite sinister men, really,
yeah,
quite sinister men, sexual harassment, verbal and physical, and all sorts of things like that. And that was that was pretty tough. And then on top of all these things, you're trying to do well in school and figure out who the hell you are. And then I started kissing girls. So I started kissing girls when I was 13, but I was too scared to talk to anyone about that. Even the girl I was kissing, we'd just meet up and
yeah.
snog. We'd never discuss it.
Straight in there.
Exactly. But like, I was too scared to even talk to myself about that stuff, to even think for a moment that, hang on, this might mean something, that I physically, viscerally do not want to be with a man in any way, but with a woman, I'm naturally drawn and attracted. Like, I was too scared to look at that stuff, I think. So I locked that away, and I was too scared to disappoint people, disappoint my family. And also, because I'd always felt like an outsider, I probably didn't want to add another reason for people to see me as different and to mock me. I probably didn't want to add that. I already felt like the odds felt a bit stacked against me somehow.
Yeah, it's so much of what you just said is a real recurring theme on the podcast around feeling like an outsider for sure, and but just not having any representation, the feeling of constant displacement of like what is wrong with me, needing to assimilate. I remember experiencing homophobic bullying, and I was told that I should leave the class. So all of those, rather than the actual perpetrator.
Yeah.
So I think all of those things, and particularly with lack of sex education, and even exposure to different identities and such, and what there was at the time, particularly in the 80s, 90s, was so limited and one note. All of that definitely contributed to me constantly feeling that sense of shame.
I'm so sorry that that happened to you, Neil, and I'm so sorry that you were asked to leave the
Yeah,
class. That
it's
is so
wild, isn't
awful.
it? Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's just our how our experiences as queer people are so
yeah.
aligned,
Mm.
different, but also aligned in sense of there's something wrong with us.
That's it. And it's this whole thing of, actually, guys, it's society that is
Mm.
fucked. It's
Yeah,
not you. It's not us. We're fine. We are
Yeah.
natural and valid and gorgeous, but society has indoctrinated us from such a young age
Yeah.
into feeling that we are the problem and taking on all that internalized shame and being othered that then makes us feel so tortured about this stuff.
Absolutely.
And then it's so powerful to share our stories so that people can feel less alone.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting now because the representation is much more out there,
Yeah.
but we're also facing this political backdrop of anti and hateful rhetoric. So it doesn't, or on the one hand, the representation might have improved, but there's still that underlying sense of shame, displacement. I'd love to ask, what was your sense of the world? What did you think about the world at that time? Because I know for me, I just thought it was just so unfair and I just didn't understand because you don't have the emotional maturity, the knowledge, the language to really convey what's going on at a time when you just need to be carried and uplifted because you're fragile, because you're a teenager, because you've got hormones all over the place. But actually, it feels like everyone hates you and you don't belong.
I mean, I think that's how I felt, that everyone hated me and I didn't belong. I
Yeah.
think I felt a lot of shame. I think I didn't feel much hope. I think
Yeah.
I felt yeah, a lot of pain. I think I was in a lot of pain, as so many of us are. I think that one thing that for me was transformative in my sense of self-worth was meeting particular friends and forming these close, life-enhancing friendships with women and with some gay men over my life. And I think one of those friendships that was really formative was when I was 16. I left school. I wasn't that happy in the high school I was at. I never really felt that I belonged there. And then I left that school and went to a sixth form college, and I met all these wonderful people, including my gorgeous friend who I'm still friends with all these years later, Layla. And Layla is creative and fabulous and glamorous and unique and one off and from Leeds. And so I remember a specific moment when me and Layla were like 16 years old. We're both the most overdressed people in any room, and we're certainly the most overdressed people in Leeds city centre expressing our creative selves. And we're walking through the centre of town, a place where I'd often been mocked by
Yeah.
strangers. And I noticed that people were like sniggering and looking, because they always were, because I looked a bit different, wore bright clothes, maybe I laughed too loud, whatever it was they took objection to. Maybe I was just a woman existing in a public space, whatever it was. And then I remember this moment, me and Layla are walking through town and we're laughing and having a good time. And then I clock that people are looking in a judgy way, which I'm
Mm.
used to. But then I realized that, oh, people are looking at Layla like that as well. And I look at Layla and she's just carrying on being her gorgeous, funny, fabulous self and not being knocked by people staring at that for some reason. And in that moment, I thought, oh, hang on a second. Like, actually, you've just got to carry on being yourself. And the fact that someone as wonderful as Layla and as these other friends that I've made in my life, the fact that they want to spend their time with me, like that really boosted my sense of self-worth and self-esteem. Because you think, well, you're awesome. If you want to spend time with me, I can't be that bad.
I love that, and it's something that judge me by the company that I keep, right? Because that will say a lot. And my chosen family, probably like a bit like Layla is to you, have really enabled me to tap into that as well. Particularly in those moments where I doubt myself and still do. You know, at 42 in public, I don't know about you, but I'm also someone that's quite brightly dressed. I look a bit different. I just think I have a different aura about me. And I'll walk into a pub or I'll be walking down the street and I'll still get those stares. And you
Mm.
know when someone's looking at you, right? That's such a powerful thing to be able to tap into. Do you still feel those kind of elements of being looked at?
Yes, I do. I do
Yeah,
still feel those. I think they've been a recurring theme of my life, and I think that it's not just because I'm gay. I think that's an element of it, and I think when I'm in public as part of a visibly lesbian couple, then the looks and the comments and the judgments and the harassment takes on a different tone. I also think that as a woman, I've always, since I was 13, been had sexual harassment from strangers and uninvited comments about my body or uninvited touching and physical harassment. That's all been there since I was 13. And that was like incredibly intense throughout my teens and my 20s. I still get it a little bit now, but teens and 20s, it was really full on. So I still certainly have the thing of walking into a room and feeling like, oh, people are giving me funny looks because I'm wearing a bright 1950s dress or whatever it is that they're having a look at. It's just me being here, being myself. But I think that as I've grown older and as I've probably drawn strength from these relationships and friendships with different amazing people, I think I've learned to care less what
yeah.
strangers think, because strangers will stare and strangers will have their opinions, but you've just got to carry on being yourself.
Yeah, that's it. And lean into that unapologetic as fuck is kind of a bit of a mantra for me. I've got it tattooed on my
Nice.
arm. And those moments where I think, oh shit, I'm being looked at or I'm being judged or I'm on
Yeah.
stage speaking and I get those nerves and stuff. I just think like you're here for a reason, you've got something to say, and tapping into that self-belief as much as the
Mm,
love from other people is
yeah.
is must be really important, particularly in terms of what you do as a queer leader.
I think it is really important to have the self-belief, definitely. And that's like kind of if you try and nurture and foster an unshakable sense of who you are and the things that you like about yourself. And if you remind yourself of actually, you know, I try and be a kind person. I'm a person who supports my friend. I'm a person who can crack a joke. Whatever it is, I'm a person with great hair. Whatever it is for you that that you feel good about, and you remind yourself of those things to build yourself back up. That's important. I also think, like, because I am someone who has always kind of worried about being judged and so on, I think something I find useful in those moments is to think, well, hang on a second. Would I shout a strange abusive comment at a stranger? Never.
Yeah.
Never in my life would I do that. Would I give a stranger a funny look? Would I touch a stranger inappropriately? Would I shout a slur at someone? Never in my life have I done that, and never would I do that. So then you think for a moment, well, hang on, I'm not sure I'm the problem here. I think it might
Yeah,
be might be this quite badly behaved, rude person who's
for
actually the
sure.
person with the issue here.
Absolutely. And it generally is, right? It
Yeah,
generally is when it comes to the experience of whether queer people or black people in POC or disabled people in public, it's generally not you, it's
yeah,
them. Yeah.
exactly.
I'd love to touch into early career if that's okay. Obviously,
Yeah.
kind of like go through school and reading in the book, it felt like you went from role to role and there was a lot of dissatisfaction and not really feeling you were going to be get to where you are now, what was that like? Because for so many people, particularly where the job market is so rough at the moment and people are struggling out there to
Mm.
land in a place where, as you were talking about at the beginning, to find something that brings you joy, to bring you that fulfillment. That's something that you experienced, right, in your early career. Tell us about that.
Oh my goodness. So, absolutely. So I'd always done very well in school, and I graduated from university, and I graduated into a recession.
Mm,
Um, and then I was trying to I knew my dream was to make a living being creative. It was anything which fits under that umbrella, and I would feel overjoyed. And it felt a bit like an impossible, hopeless dream, but that was the dream. And I was applying for creative jobs, entry-level creative jobs, not getting anywhere. I applied to drama school, got a place at drama school, but couldn't afford the tuition fees. I was looking at applying for like masters in journalism, couldn't afford any of that. So the financial reality was, well, girl's got to make a living, girl's got
Yeah.
to get a job. So then, in fact, pretty much my entire 20s were a series of jobs that, and I don't want to denigrate these jobs because they're important jobs, but they were
Yeah.
jobs that were not something that I personally found fulfilling. So they were receptionist jobs, eventually an office manager job, things like that. And it's really the whole time in the background while I was going every day to this job that felt so unnourishing in a way to me compared to what I wanted to be doing. The whole time in the background, I was always trying to do creative stuff, always trying to get this ship out to sea, always trying to make something happen. And it's actually like it's writing your memoir, it really puts your life in perspective, because actually I spent pretty much 10 years, which I think will probably horrify some people to hear, but pretty much 10 years trying to get a start. And I just found it felt like an impenetrable world, the creative and media industries. I didn't know anyone in those worlds. I didn't have any contacts or a network or anything like that. I didn't really have any savvy. I hadn't been able to afford to do the training and so on. So I was sort of just blindly trying to do stuff for a long time. And I got a lot of rejection. I did a lot of working for free. But you know what? I kept going with it. And then it was only when I was 30, actually, only when I was 30 did I get my first sort of, for me, meaningful career break. So by this time, I was doing bits and pieces of journalism and copywriting. Some of it was still free, some of it was paid, but not paid very well. And I still had a day job that was making me feel very sad. And then when I was 30 and having approaching a bit of a breakdown in quite a lot of ways in my life, quite a lot of stuff was coming to a head. There was grief, there was mental health struggles, there was self-esteem issues, there was a lot of pain, a lot of pain. And then the job stuff kind of came to a head where I just didn't know if I had it in me to keep on going on this path. And it felt a bit like maybe the whole creative thing was a childish dream. Maybe get real, maybe figure out some other plan. Maybe it's time to just forget this, Rox. Maybe this isn't going to be you. This is something that other people get. And then I, in a lovely twist of fate, then a magazine which I had been reading since I was a closeted teenager, which is DIVA magazine. I saw a job advert for an editorial assistant, which is like an entry-level magazine job. And I thought, okay, wow, I know this magazine. I understand this magazine as a reader, and I think I could offer them something as well. And then I worked so hard on that application. I grafted away on the application to make it just as strong and as joyful and as big as possible. And then they called me in for an interview, and I was so nervous. Like, I can remember my voice was shaking. I was so nervous. And I think one of the interview questions was like, what's your biggest weakness? And I think I said, caring too much, as you can probably hear from my voice, because my voice was like, ooh, doing things. And that was good because they laughed and it broke the ice and it was fine. And then I walked away from the job thinking, I don't know if I've got it, but I got myself in the room. That's got to count for something. That was further than I've managed to get in the last 10 years. And then I got the job, and that really changed the trajectory of my career in a massive way. And that was a real turning point for me. But it was after 10 years
that's a lot of slog.
graft.
A lot of slog. And that I definitely got to that point of the book, and I felt that sense of despair from you. Like I really felt it. You capture it so well, and then that moment that it sounds like it was such a beautiful moment. And look at you now. When you first got that entry job, right? Would you have thought that you would be sat here as editor of DIVA?
No. No, I couldn't have imagined any of it. No.
It's amazing.
It is, thank you. It's lovely. And I couldn't have imagined that I would have written a book that was going out in the world, and I couldn't have imagined all sorts of extraordinary career and creative adventures I've had. Because I was just so relieved to have finally got something.
Yeah. I mean, hey, and the rest is history, right? But there'll be so many creatives who are in that position still to this day. And I think that creative industries is it's tougher than it's ever been. It's oversaturated, it's so
Yeah.
competitive, it's a lot of the case of who you know, as you said, you didn't have any of those contacts, and connections. What would you say to anyone who's in a similar position now?
I would say that if this is something you really, really want to do with your life, then that's brilliant. That's wonderful. You need to think seriously about how you're going to achieve that. And I think in terms of like career advice that I might offer, the one thing I'd say if you wanted to take inspiration from my approach is to keep at it and not give up, and to keep being creative in whatever way you can, whether or not you can make a living for it, partly for your own kind of building up your portfolio and your career progression and for the different people you might meet, but also for your own, if you're a creative person, then I imagine that you need that outlet and you need that release. So probably to keep at it and to nurture creativity in your life are the things to take from me. But the rest of it, I'd say, don't take inspiration from me. I took 10 years. I'd say, take inspiration from let's see, what would I say? Okay, so a big thing I had was I didn't have a network. I didn't know anyone in the world. So try and build a network,
Yeah.
try and find out. And I feel like these days, I feel like there's a lot more opportunities that I see for LGBT networks or women's networks or different organizations. So I would say try and find out, try and proactively seek out people that you can then make part of your network. Because I certainly felt very isolated in my career, thwarted attempts at trying it for so long. So I'd say try and find contemporaries, try and find a network. And then if it's magazines you're interested in, do work experience, which I did. I did lots of work experience. But once you're in the placement doing your work experience, make the most of it and try and build those connections and try and be as helpful as you can and try and keep those relationships going after you leave the placement, because that can sometimes lead to career opportunities as well.
Solid advice there. I definitely, hard relate to that as well. In terms of just showing up, get yourself out there. Networking can be fucking uncomfortable, right? But actually,
Definitely.
just push through it and get your face and your name out there. You've created quite a strong personal brand as well, in terms of kind of like your style and the way you come across and the way you write. How important has that been for you in terms of creative? And do you draw any boundaries in terms of what you do share?
That's such an interesting question. I think that, what do I think? I think for those 10 years when I was slogging away and it felt like I wasn't getting anywhere meaningful, I thought, well, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe
Mm,
my voice isn't the right voice. Maybe me being a lesbian is not interesting to people. Maybe no one wants to hear what this random dyke from Leeds has to say. I thought maybe my humour was not appealing. Maybe the way I looked wasn't right. I thought that thing,
yeah.
maybe I'm the problem. But actually, what happened once I got my foot in the door on a creative career in writing was that I started to realize that all the things that make you unique and all the things that perhaps might make you feel other, but also they're the things that make you you. Actually, if you lean into them and use them creatively, then they become part of your voice. And for me, people have different views on writing, but for me, I love a voicey writer. I want to feel that I'm getting to know the person through their voice, and I want to be able to hear their voice as I'm reading their words. So for me, it's kind of like embracing the things that make me me and the things that I love and the things that I enjoy, and bringing that to the work I do is quite important, I think, in crafting out like a distinctive voice. So I think it's an authentic voice, but it is
Yeah.
true that also I think I looked a lot at writers who I admire, and all my favorite writers have a really strong voice. They have a
Yeah.
really like you can tell it's them without seeing the name on the book. So I wanted to nurture that and nurture my own point of view. Where do I have a do I how do I draw a line? Well, that's an interesting question, because with the memoir, so I've always written some personal stuff in my journalism and at DIVA, but in the memoir, that's a whole new level of personal stuff. So knowing where I'm comfortable with that line being of how much you share and which parts of your life actually don't need to be for public consumption, that was a case of, I wrote kind of the full uncensored version, and then I reread it and thought really carefully, okay, how would I feel if this was in the public domain? How do I actually want this part of my own personal trauma or whatever it was, or this particular relationship with this person or whatever it is, do I actually want that out there? How would I actually feel? And then a degree of self-protection in that sense of making sure that you're not just exposing your most vulnerable, traumatic parts of your past in this forum, or if you are going to expose some of them, thinking really carefully about how you're going to feel when that's out there. And then also you're thinking, the important thing here is not that the reader knows what a hard time I've had. It's that the reader knows and has come with me on an engaging, emotional, powerful journey, which they can draw comfort and entertainment and thought from. So it's coming back to the craft of it rather than just the emotional pouring out.
Yeah, you're not writing a sob story. You're bringing people. You're bringing people with you. It's so interesting because there's a lot of discourse around how much of your identity and your experience do you put into your public profile and persona and what you share. So yeah, I just think it's thanks for sharing, because that's a super interesting way to look at it. I love that idea of getting it all out there and then stripping it back and really being reflective on that. Within a little bit of the same vein, I'd love to talk about a failure that maybe has shaped you. You know, failures shape us as much as our successes do. Has there been one time where you thought, shit, what the fuck have I done, that's actually turned out to be the making of you?
When I think about my personal failures career-wise, it's most of my career. It's my entire 20s. Like, we've got a decade, Neil, of career failure. And I certainly felt like a failure in that time. And I certainly also noticed in a really big way that became even clearer when I got the job in journalism and in DIVA, the different way that people treat you when they perceive you as a different level of success. That is a real eye-opener. And that's really interesting. So I certainly felt like a failure throughout my entire 20s. But let's see, how can we reframe that? What did I take from it? Hey, I had a hell of a lot of life experiences. I had some wild adventures, as you can read about in my memoir. I did indeed. I had some great loves. I had some great losses. I had some great laughs. I traveled. I had some great experiences. And I also, even doing the jobs that I found so unfulfilling, I met some gorgeous, gorgeous friends who I'm still friends with to this day. So there's beauty to be found among the rubble of your failures.
And I imagine the culmination of those 10 years and then landing that job as well, there's something quite like, oh my gosh, I got here.
Yeah, absolutely. There is. I do remember that feeling, and it was an elated feeling, and also a feeling of relief, you know, because I was starting to feel like it's not going to happen for me. So there was a real relief and a real elation and a real joyful excitement about the future. And you know what else? Those 10 years that were such a career failure, they make up quite a juicy part in my memoir, like with all the adventures that I had. So it's all turned out okay.
Put those to good use. I'd love to hear about someone who has shaped you the most along the way.
I think you're going to be able to guess the answer.
Yeah, probably.
I think it can't not be my granny. I think that she was just this radiant sunshine, funny, warm, gorgeous, gutsy, glamorous, idiosyncratic, fabulous woman who I adored, and I still do. And I still think about her every day, and I still draw inspiration and comfort and joy from her. And I still think about how she would navigate rooms with people and how she would navigate social situations or how she would navigate difficult times in her life, because her life wasn't all plain sailing, as gorgeous and glamorous and funny and lovable as she was. And I draw a lot from that relationship. And I guess that thing you said of she saw me, and I think she did. And I think that has been one of the, it's really hard for me to talk about my granny without getting all gushy, but that has been that has really shaped the woman I am, and it certainly shapes the woman I want to be. I strive to have a bit of that in me, and I aim for that.
You see people as in what you do and how you show up in the world. Do you think that partly comes from that experience of being seen by your granny?
I think it does. I think it does. And I think it comes from a combination of knowing how painful it is to not be seen and how damaging it is to not be seen and how it makes us turn in on ourselves and sabotage or hate or feel shame in ourselves. And I think it comes from that. And I also think it comes from knowing how glorious and enhancing and magical it can be when you do feel seen. So I think it's the combination of those two things that now means that when I'm writing or when I'm editing an issue of Diva magazine or whatever it is, I am always wanting people to feel seen, because I know how life-changing that is and how much we as people need that.
Thank you for sharing. Mic drop. Does happiness and success look and feel how you thought it would?
I don't know if I think of myself as successful. I think I've had moments where I felt professionally successful. I think getting the editorial assistant job at Diva was one of those moments. I think getting the editorship and becoming editor-in-chief of Diva, I felt in that moment, that felt like a career triumph. And I think when I got my book deal and knew that I was going to have a book published in the world, that felt like a success. But more than success, I think that they felt like moments of relief. And I think that, why did they feel like moments of relief? Partly because of my fear that I wouldn't achieve things I wanted to achieve. And it's like, oh, thank God it's happened. And then partly, and this sounds a little bit maybe existential or maybe a little bit grandiose, but like I think part of why I want to write and part of why I love magazines and the physical printed form of magazines, and part of why it is impactful and important for me personally to hold a book I've written in my hand, is this thing of I want to feel that I've written my message in a bottle and I've put it out to sea and I've left something and I've created something that then other people can hopefully discover and interact with or feel comforted by or entertained by or whatever it is. And I think that is meaningful and exciting to me. And I think that's a big part of why I've written, although it sounds quite grand to say it, but I think it's that feeling of having left something behind. And also as queer people, I think, like, if you think back to our amazing queer ancestors who left messages in bottles for us to find, like, you know, one obvious example, Anne Lister from Gentleman Jack, who wrote her secret coded diaries, I love and only love the fairer sex, and hid them away, and then they were discovered and decoded years later. We're leaving evidence that we have existed. We're leaving our stories, we're leaving our messages in a bottle so that other people might find them and they might know a little of who we are and who we have been, and in the process of that perhaps know themselves better, or at least go on a lovely journey with us. So that is important to me. Does success look and feel how I thought it would? So for me, the moments of success have been quite fleeting, but the power of those interactions with people who have felt in some way moved or entertained or touched or empowered by work that I've done, they feel bigger. Like whether it's that someone's felt whether it's that someone's felt that they've really felt seen through an issue of Diva, or whether it's that they've felt moved by the book, those personal moments, they feel bigger to me than the fleeting successes. And then happiness again.
It's often one we miss out, isn't it? It's often
Yeah,
we overlook happiness these days, right,
yeah,
in favor of success.
yeah, I think that's true. I think again, happiness, like, it's not always like a permanent state, is it? It's like you
No.
can have moments of joy and happiness, and they're so important. But it's also understanding that you're unlikely to maintain that exact level of happiness the
Yeah.
whole time. And for me, happiness looks like love and laughter. And I've been with Naomi for 10 years, and she still makes me laugh every day, and I make her laugh every day. And I mean, now I'm going to be a very soppy old lesbian. And every day I look at her and I'm filled with love, and I think she's gorgeous, and she knows me and she sees me and she loves me, and I feel the same for her. So I have a moment of happiness every day through this gorgeous relationship with this fabulous woman. But yeah, I think that happiness and success, then it's more like you feel them in moments. And then sometimes something will hit you and you'll reflect and you'll think, oh, wow, I did
Yeah.
that thing. That was worth doing. Or, oh, wow, this is something to be joyful about. And those are quite profound moments too.
Firstly, totally here for the soppy. I think that so much of what those messages in a bottle are actually subconscious as well. You don't
Mm,
necessarily realize that you're doing it. I've just, as you were talking, I was thinking, oh my God, this podcast might not be listened to by loads of people, but it's always going to be out there. So I hadn't
yeah.
really thought of it like that. It taps a little bit into legacy, right? And what we're leaving
Mm,
behind. And as queer
mm.
people that might not necessarily have big families or children and generations after us, it feels important to do that for the community. So thank you. That's such a beautiful way of capturing it. My final question for this segment is, looking back so far, what are you most proud of?
Pride is a funny thing for me. I don't know. What do I feel proud of? I feel proud. It's even quite hard to say the words I feel proud, isn't it? I know what I feel proud of. I feel proud of when I look back at closeted, tortured, shame-filled 13-year-old me, and I see the journey that I have been on, and I see the pain that I've endured and the challenges I've faced and the trauma that I've navigated and the self-esteem that I've wrestled with. And then looking at how far I have come since then and the life that I have built for myself with the help of people who are wonderful, who I love. The life that I've built for myself and how far I've come from that shame-filled girl at 13, I feel proud of that.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day raid, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quickfire questions?
Yes, let's do them.
What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
So, musically, I'm going to choose one song that I always return to at different moments in my life for all sorts of reasons, and it always makes me cry. It's Fleetwood Mac, Landslide, and there's a line in it that says, I've been afraid of changing because I built my life around you, but time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too. And that refrain I have revisited and been moved by at so many points in my life, because it's all about, for me personally, that song, I'm sure it's about lots of other things to other people, but for me it's about, oh, I've been trying to make this other person or this other thing or this society or whatever it is happy, and I've been pushing myself into uncomfortable shapes to do that, but I'm getting older and time's ticking on, and I've got to get bold now, and I've got to start being true to myself. And that, whether it's been a relationship or whether it's been a career thing or whether it's been all sorts of different things in my life, that for me has been a bit of a recurring soundtrack that I found helpful.
I love that. So many people struggle to choose one song or one album, never
Yeah.
mind one specific song. Thank you. What's a saying you live by and one that you'd put straight in the bin?
Okay, a saying I live by is Dolly Parton.
Well, hey, Queen.
Exactly. I'm like, everybody give it up for Dolly. Gorgeous Dolly Parton. Find out who you are and do it on purpose.
Oh, again, speaking so much to authenticity, right?
That's it.
And
That's it.
she rings. I mean, there's no one that rings authenticity like Dolly. And
Exactly.
some
So
people would probably argue with that in terms of Dolly and this persona, but I don't see her as any different in all of her different guises over the years. She's stayed Dolly.
I think she has. And I think she's gorgeous and big hearted and creative. And I love her. I think she's great. And I think that that's a great, for me, like a sort of thing to apply career wise. Find out who you are and do it on purpose. That is very much what I've done as a writer. And I think it's a good lesson for us all. And then I've also got a saying I'd put in the bin, which is when people say, who does she think she is?
Okay.
I don't like that. I don't like people judging women for daring to do anything. I don't like that
Yeah.
sort of who does she think she is, like sneery, judgy thing. I think let's put that in the bin and let's let everybody be and express themselves.
Because it's always it's always gendered, right? You don't
Yeah,
really hear many
yeah,
people to say who does he think he is. Even the
it's
gays
true.
actually, when they're describing another gay, will use she, and I know that's just a fun thing, but it's so true. It's such a gendered expression.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's all about reinforcing a social norm where women stay in their place and
Yeah,
don't risk being called too much or that.
don't get too big or above your station. Yeah,
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 yeah. I
no,
think it's a control. I think it's like a controlling thing, but I think
yeah,
it's something that people say, and I think it should get in the bin.
absolutely. Fuck the patriarchy. What has been the best adventure of your life so far?
I think I've had all sorts of adventures. I think that I've had adventures in my love life, both in the women I've had relationships with, and in my wild single days. I've had all sorts of wild adventures, and I think that I've had a lot of creative adventures, and some of those have been like applying for the diva job, and look how much joy and adventure that's brought to my life. Writing the memoir, look at what a creative adventure that's been and continues to be. But also, even before all that, like I feel like I was someone who would, I'm a person who would give things a go and then give them my all. So, like when I was a student in Manchester, why not? I signed up to do a street theatre performance of the vagina monologues, and I'm there in the centre of Manchester
Love it.
shouting about vaginas to strangers to try and empower them. And that's an adventure. Like, I think I've had all sorts of creative adventures, and it's all about being open and trying things and then giving them your all.
Do we need to bring the vagina monologues back in this day and age where gender we still need to fight so hard for gender equality?
I think that there's still a lot in vagina monologues that rings true.
Yeah.
And I think that there's still a lot of points that are made in that book which would still ring true, or in that play, which would still ring true for women and queer people and
Mm,
people today. Um, I think that I think that it's really important to keep using our voices. And something that Vagina Monologues does is it uses humour and empathy as a tool for change to challenge patriarchy and status quo. And I think we definitely should keep doing that. We should definitely keep using our sense of humour and our voice to try and change things for the better.
absolutely. Absolutely. What three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
So, my origin story and me, three words. So, I was thinking about this. I had one version that was traumatized but trying, but then I thought that's not very upbeat.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, it's brilliant.
I thought that was a little bit sad. So I've moved on. That was the first draft. I've moved on from traumatized but trying. So I think I'm going to go for liberation through laughter, I think is a good way to describe my origin story. Or one that could be, to sum it all up, buckle up, Buttercup.
Oh my gosh. I mean, these are both amazing. Sod it. We'll put them both in. Love it. Let's fast forward a little bit. What exciting things do you have coming up? Obviously, the book.
This is it. So the book is coming up. The book is published on 17th of April. Before that, it's available to pre-order from all your favourite bookshops. And that's really exciting. And then as well as that, we've got Lesbian Visibility Week in April that we're planning. We've got the DIVA Awards that's going to be really gorgeous and fabulous. And then loads of exciting like book promo, book publicity events and so on coming up as well. So a lot in the pipeline.
Exciting. I was about to ask if you're a book tour lined up, but yeah.
I've got definitely got some book events.
Nice. I'll keep an eye out for those. What brings you joy?
Laughing with my loved ones, whether it's my partner or my friends. Glamour. So getting glammed up, that to me feels like a true expression and celebration of who I am and what I love and what brings me happiness. Dancing. I feel wild and free when I dance. I love it. And being by the ocean also makes me feel peaceful as well as joyful.
My final question for you is this. Do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
I think what I would say is a few things. I think one thing I'd say is don't think if you haven't got to where you want to be in your 20s, it's game over, because it's really not. Society kind of instills this obsession with youth and with like achieving really young as being this thing to aspire to. And that's fantastic if you do achieve young. I'm all here for you and I celebrate you and salute you. But it's also true that people have a lot to offer at all different ages and stages of their lives, and that you can achieve great things at any point in your life. So that would be one thing. Another thing I would say is if you don't see yourself represented in books or TV or music or whatever that forum is, then create the representation that you need to see. Tell the story you need to hear. And in doing so, you will validate your own existence, but you will also help validate and make other people feel seen. So that can be a really powerful act. And I think the other thing I'd say is like, just to know that despite how it sometimes seems, you are not alone. You are not the problem. Society's broken, not you. You are loved. You are valid. You are worthy, and you deserve to feel good about yourself. And seek out the people who make you feel good. Seek out the people who celebrate and support you, and crucially, make you feel when you're with them that you are your truest self. There'll be some people you feel you're putting on an act with, or some people you feel you're minimizing parts of yourself to try and make them like you more, or to try and get ahead in this space, or whatever it is. But you need to find those people who you feel you're shining your brightest with and being your whole self, and they're loving you because of that, not in spite of that. And just know that you are part of a gorgeous community of people and your story deserves to be told.
Roxy, thank you. I'm so grateful for this time together. I'm so excited to get this episode out there and for people to get that book in their hands.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much, Neil. What a gorgeous conversation. I've had such a lovely time talking to you.
I really, really hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. The actual conversation, and then when I listened to it back, while I was editing, and Roxy is someone I could talk to all day, and not just about sharing granny stories either. You know, with mutual love, Roxy for her granny, and me of my nan. Could have easily done that all day, but just love hearing her story. And where she's got to now, and what it took for her to get there. And I think that Roxy, when she talks about her story and jokes around, kind of don't take advice from me because it took me 10 years. And I think so many of us can relate to that frustration and despair about not getting where we want to, maybe fast enough, and wanting to get there. And so it just goes to show that when you put in the graft and you really put yourself out there and take a chance on yourself and believe in yourself, as Roxy did, and when that moment that she landed the job at Diva, and now she's editor-in-chief, and just keep going, keep pushing through, because you will get there, and something amazing will come your way. And I think Roxy is really testament to that. The book really is one of freedom, empowerment, expression, and joy. And just massive love to Roxy and the team at Diva magazine for the way that they show up for our community, for queer women, for trans and non-binary folk. I'm a huge fan of Diva, and the work that the team do, led by Roxy. I'm super excited for the Diva Awards coming up in less than a couple of weeks now. So, can't say it enough. Go buy the book. Go buy the book, please. It is such a brilliant read. Hilarious, heartwarming, heartbreaking, but just so funny. And Roxy's voice, as you'll hear when you read it, just absolutely shines through. Thank you so much for listening. Please do like, subscribe, share, comment on Spotify. Let me know what you think. Always appreciated. And spread the word, help to get these conversations out. They deserve to be heard. So stay tuned for more amazing guests on Pause and Rewind. I've actually only got a couple more episodes before I am taking a short break. So thanks so much, everyone, for listening. I'll see you soon. Cheers.